All right. Today is a special episode. Chris and I have been planning this episode. I don't know. It seems like roughly 6 months on and off. So we finally got him in front of the camera for this podcast. And like, if you know me, you know I like to give a particular name. And in this case, I want to name Chris the expert boss because this dude is not just an expert, but he talks to experts probably more than I do. And he makes deals and contracts and shakes hands and kisses babies and rides bikes, all by being an expert at the same time. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Chris. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about you and what would you like to talk about today?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that intro. What do I do? Firstly, who am I?
Yeah.
You kind of, my name's Chris. I started podcast in 2021 and long story short, I was unemployed. And after 6 months of grinding with the podcast, I got hired by AppSumo, and that's how I met SA Grant through AppSumo. And I've been on a crazy roller coaster of a ride, worked with some phenomenal people, met some amazing, smart, creative people, and only recently also got hired um, to be a podcast host for a different company, and then also to work with Capsho. So it's been an incredible journey.
Well, I think you sure changed yourself. I mean, obviously, AppSumo, we'll get to that, but I want to kind of go back a little bit more. And right before we got on this call, you was talking about food, and I didn't want to lead into that, but like obviously, you were once like a pastry chef, like, and again, I don't think podcasters that are around you even know this. So I want you to kind of talk about like how the hell you go from making savory pastries to becoming a podcaster.
Yeah, that's a funny story. So when I was 15, when I left school, or not even when I left school, but in school, I was cooking and just learning the trade. And I joined a like junior chef academy at the local cooking school. And I thought, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This was what I wanted to do. I wanted to cook
Mm.
around the world and be the best chef as like in the top 1% or top 10%. So in my spare time, while trying to learn how to cook, I was going down to the local restaurant saying, "Can I do a trial shift with you? Can I just cook with you for a day?" And most of the time after that trial, they'd just accept me and say, "Yeah, you can come in and work for us for £3 an hour or £6 an hour," which was uh, cheap labor. But I
Mm.
fell in love with it. I fell in love with the pressure, the creativity, and I pursued that from age 15 to 24. But in those time periods between age 15 and 24, had to keep going back to the hospital for ankle surgery. So
Mm.
between 15 and 24, I had 6 ankle operations, left and right. And unfortunately, I had to give up my career as a chef. But I did get to Australia and work with a celebrity chef who's been on MasterChef Australia. And I can remember saying when I watched him on the TV, I'm going to work for him one day. And when I
Mm.
went to Australia, I went straight to his restaurant and said, I really want to work for you. Can I work with you for free for a day? And then you decide if you want to employ me. And I got hired. So
Mm.
the principles that I have been using in the podcasting game by just asking to do something for free or to support has worked out for me.
Mm.
But between that age 15 and 24, I had a fantastic career working in the US, in Kennebunk in Maine, all the way to Melbourne, Australia, Northern Ireland. And it was a fantastic experience, taught me a lot. And it's definitely my foundation for success is working under pressure, attention to detail, creativity.
Mm.
So that age 24 is when I decided I needed to change because I couldn't stand on my feet for 80 hours a week. So now I sit on my bum for 80 hours a week.
I think you're so modest when you tell these stories, and like you and I, we've been like business partners and friends for a period of time, but it's like these little things that like when I do like my background research that you find out that you didn't know. So I mean, obviously you were a pastry chef, you did cooking, but you also had an opportunity to cook for like the president of the United States, right? Like I mean, that's just something that that people die for, but you had that opportunity to cook for George W. Bush. So I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit. What
Yeah,
W. Bush.
it's funny. Yeah, it was the senior Bush. He came into the hotel that I was working at, and we all had to have like security checks to make sure we were um, not criminals. But this was during age, I think 18 or 19. I was supposed to do a 1 year intern in the US to work at the White Barn Inn in Maine. If you're from Kennebunkport, I love you. So please reach out to me if you are from Kennebunkport, because I want to just connect with you because it's got a place in my heart. But I went there with the aim of doing 1 year, but after 3 months, my steroid injection in my foot wore off, and every night in those periods of time working in the kitchen, I had to sit on a flour bin, breaking lobsters, making pastry to rest my foot. And then I realized, I need to go home for surgery. So that 1 year got cut short, but I still did what I could with those 3 months. And in that period of time, I was given that opportunity to cook with a bunch of 7 of us, the ex-president, senior. And then when I was in Melbourne, Australia, the restaurant that I was working with the celebrity chef, we were the private chefs for Novak Djokovic for the Melbourne Tennis Open, which was another incredible opportunity that I'm thankful for.
Well, I think that's definitely crazy. It's a hell of a journey, and you brought up your ankle a couple different times. So if I say this statement, obviously I'm expecting to see a smile on your face, and then I'm going to allude the listeners to what I'm talking about. So, come on, lads, up that hill. What does that mean to you?
That doesn't mean much to me.
All right, so I'm gonna bring it back to your attention. So there was a video, right, when you were riding and you came in fourth on a unicycle. So I want to talk about, like, obviously you ride bikes like fiercely, probably the reason why you probably had to have ankle surgery. So I want to kind of like pull those two things together because you brought it up. But I want to talk about, like, where the hell does unicycle even fit into this equation? Where I didn't even know there was unicycle races. So I want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, in the YouTube video you saw, I think it was 2008, so it was before I was 15, and at that time I was doing karate as well, and I think some of those exercises that we're doing were just causing me grief later on in life. Later on, I'm still young, but the unicycling happened. I'm in the Boy Scouts, or was in the Boy Scouts, and I went along to a camp, and there was a unicycle there, and my natural curiosity is, it can't be that difficult. And so I gave the 2 days on camp the opportunity. I gave myself as much time as possible to learn to sit and really just fail at trying to figure it out. And then I bought one on Amazon or whatever it was. I think it was still Amazon. It could have been my first ever purchase on Amazon Prime, was a unicycle. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. I also did unicycle hockey, which is on a basketball court, unicycling with a hockey stick. And yeah, that was fun. And then unicycle races at a 2K and a 10K. And now when I feel like I want to be a child for a day, I'll just go on my unicycle. I've got a advanced unicycle now that goes off-road. But yeah, it's really great that I'm fully recovered from surgery and I can do it whenever I want. But it's a great skill to have.
So, I mean, even with that, I mean, obviously you went through surgery, you're trying to figure out how to work, you got off your feet, but you didn't stop cycling. So, I mean, after that thing, you did a 300-mile cancer research hand cycling. So you went from unicycling to hand cycling. So again, I'm painting this picture that you're a little bit on the crazy side, a little bit. You have to be kind of crazy to be a podcaster. So I want you to talk about these 300 miles for cancer that you did with a hand cycle, and how did you even get into hand cycling from unicycling?
Yeah, so this was actually, I think it was my 6th surgery. I had to have, I've got complicated ankles, and I just wanted to raise money. And so it's funny you say he must be insane, because The challenge was 200 miles for cancer research. But after I completed the 200 miles, I still had like 15 days of September left. So I said,
Hmm.
let's boost it to 300 miles. So the reason I got into hand cycling, a charity called Cycling Projects and Wheels for You, Wheels for All, gave me the hand cycle.
Hmm.
It's mainly for disabled adults, but I only needed it for a temporary time. And I thought, well, if I can't cycle properly or unicycle, I still want to get some form of exercise. And at the time, that was the only kind of exercise that I could get. Walking was difficult. So hand cycling was perfect for me. And because of my video marketing skills, I created a video for them and gave it to them, keep in touch with them. And yeah, that's how I got into it. I wanted to raise money for charity, so
Hmm.
I did my best to hand cycle around my city and fall in love with my city again. But it made me appreciate our disabled friends, from but my blind friends all the way to other people in wheelchairs. So
Hmm.
crossing the road and accessing different buildings, it opened my perspective. And people look at you differently when you're in a wheelchair, and it doesn't feel very nice. But yeah, hand cycling is what kept me sane.
Hmm. Hmm. So I mean, that kind of leads me to like your upbringing. I mean, obviously you're across the pond, you're in the UK, but I mean, what kind of kid were you? I mean, obviously you're talking about Boy Scouts, you're talking about riding bikes, you're talking about bakery, you talk about cooking, you talk about all these different things. So it would make me seem like you were climbing off the wall, or you were just a very, very active individual, and your parents just kept influencing whatever you wanted to do. Correct
Yeah,
me if
so yeah, no, that I would say I have always been an independent child.
I'm.
So I grew up as an only child, so that meant I've got to enjoy my own time.
Mm,
And I picked up different sports in schools, played for the rugby team, played for the football team, but I preferred doing activities on my own, being in my own head, listening to music, being creative, doing things by myself. And that might seem like, oh, well, he's got no friends, but uh, it's just one of those things. I like swimming. It's me. It's my competition. Unicycling. It's a sport that I do by myself. Yeah. So my childhood has been fun. We traveled the world. Yeah, I feel like I've had a very blessed childhood. And the sports that I do are not a reflection of anything. It's just I pick up what I enjoy to do
mm. I mean,
or I'm curious about.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I didn't realize you were only child, and so am I. So I definitely, this next question kind of goes into it. Like, being an only child, you always want to know historically about your family or where things come from, because to your point, you're by yourself and you have time to think about it. So I want you to kind of talk about, like, how did you get into genealogy a little bit?
Well, this boy's done his research. You know, Cownden is a very unique surname. And thank goodness for Facebook, because you can search your surname and find a bunch of Cowdens. And that's what we did back in, I don't know what date it was or what year it was. We searched for Cowden, and believe it or not, there's only 5 or so Cowdens that I know personally in the UK. And the rest were on Facebook in Vancouver, British Columbia. And there's like 300, maybe 400. And I thought, well, that's worth exploring. So
Mm,
I've taken it upon myself to do DNA tests, uh, even go all the way to the US to see AppSumo, but also take another flight to Los Angeles to meet a candidate in person. And
mhm.
um, other family members have been over to British Columbia to see them, but we've really used technology to find our missing Cowden family, and we found out they are related, fourth cousins, fifth cousins, but
Mm.
we've gone from 5 to now 500 members, and
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it's really fascinating to be able to see where I'm from, and still lots to learn.
So I'm happy you brought up British Columbia, and so again, that's like a region of Canada, which kind of leads me to the story of where you are right now. And I would say your business partner and mentor, and like my friend Phil. Like, I want you to talk about that. Like, I mean, obviously, you're doing all these different things. You're across the pond, mind you. Phil is in Canada, which is the other side of the world from where you are. How the hell did you two even find each other to get on the same accord and start this podcasting empire that you guys have created?
Yeah, it's really amazing story, and thank goodness for podcasting because if I hadn't even joined a marketing group and somebody said to me, "Oh, you'd be great at podcasting because you like talking to people,"
Mm,
never in a million years would I have met Phil. The podcast started. I interviewed somebody who was in Portugal. Who was um, can helps people predict their revenue predictably, which is amazing. So that was the first episode, and the second episode was with Phil. I just reached out. I said I'm looking for experts to interview for my new podcast. It's unnamed at the moment. I'm just going with a flow, and I'm doing it to improve my confidence on camera and communication because I stutter, and I also am a little bit lonely, so I
mm.
just want to talk to people that inspire me and are where I want to go. So uh, I I asked Phil, and he said yes, I'd love to be on your podcast. I didn't realize he had officially, or had started podcasting a couple of years back, but more seriously a year before that. So it was great that we were kind of on this journey together. We had a 1 hour session like this, and we just clicked. The energy clicked, and I said, "Oh, I need your help as much as possible." And he said, "Yeah, uh, I'll help you." So he became a mentor, and then soon, because we were spending talking with each other on Messenger or on video chat once a day, it became a friend, brother, really, really, really fast. And then when I had the opportunity to go over to the US to see AppSumo, I took a detour and met him in person in Montreal, which again solidified the relationship, uh, just like meeting anybody in person does.
Yep, yep. So those are the don't know who we're talking about. Phil was, I think, was on like my season two. I don't remember the episode, but I mean, like we're in season six right now, so that just kind of puts some history of like how long Phil has been in the game, kind of behind the scenes and in front of the camera all at the same time. It's a great guy, great visionary, and a ball full of energy. So the fact that you guys the two have joined up, I want to talk about the joint venture that you guys currently have. Like, what are you doing now with podcasters that are not just about creating content, but you're educating podcasters on how to develop podcasts?
Yeah, so it's called Podcast Launch Agency. It's something that I was spending a lot of my focus on while looking for another opportunity, because what I realized is when I was out income right at the start of my podcasting journey, I didn't have anything to fall back on, and I wanted to make sure that not fall back as in plan B, but just have something as an additional income stream. So when I felt it was the right time to help other people create the same momentum that I've created from starting a podcast, we teamed up and said, okay, Phil is the ideas guy. Phil knows how to monetize podcasts. I've been able to create a massive amount of momentum, I feel, in my life from podcasting, and met some incredible people. So let's just help people uh, launch a podcast, and that's kind of where my expertise is. And he's on the growth and monetization, has an abundance of ideas. He's given me all the everything I've done up to this point is, I'd say, 90% Phil's idea. I've just ran with it, and yeah, that we just really get on. It's a brotherhood. um yeah, so we launch podcasts. We do want to improve the quality over time. We know that nothing is perfect ever at the start, and we'd rather see you make progress as you go. So I think the offer is slightly going to change because I want to support the career changes a little bit. But at the moment, we're helping expert-based professionals or aspiring entrepreneurs um, completely transform their life with podcasting. But it doesn't happen in 30 days or 1 year. It happens after that. You got to fall in love with it.
Yeah, 100%, 100% agree with that. But also at the same time, I think you have to kind of be like a risk taker. Like you have to have the entrepreneurial spirit, which you've shown through and through from like riding bikes. I mean, I think you even flew a plane like back in 2021, right? Like you was like, that's my first flight, but not my last flight. So I mean, like obviously taking risk and searching for that burst of energy and that adrenaline is what podcasters feed off of. So I want to talk about like how many people have you helped since you started? 'Cause I mean, you only started like less than a year ago, right?
Yeah, so it's funny. Probably one of the saddest days of my life was losing my nan, October the 8th, 2022. And that was that was day one of the first 13-week podcast launch challenge. It was booked, so I didn't want to cancel on 5 people that wanted to be the first 5 podcasts that we launched. So we kicked off on a high to dedicate the next year of action to her. So we ran 5 people through their first podcast launch. Brought on experts. I know you appeared in that to do a training on branding, and we had other people come on to talk about different parts that are foundations for your success as a podcaster. So we did that. So from October 8th up to now, we've done at least 20 to 30, and then we've combined with Mike's podcast and Phil's podcast, so over 50, which is fantastic. But now because I sell a product on AppSumo, or sell products on AppSumo, a lot of people have launched podcasts that haven't been able to handhold, but of the hand holding, it's probably close to 15.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, it kind of brings me to like AppSumo. Those that have heard me talk on this podcast, they know that I collect AppSumo deals like baseball cards. Like I will hoard these things. I have an active budget in my monthly, like bottom line to spend capital on AppSumo to get the best deals and to systematize what I'm doing. So I want you to kind of talk about that. I mean, obviously, how did you even get into AppSumo? What was so profound about it back then when you got into it, and how is it still helping you today?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I want to give a bit of a shout out to James Mulvaney from Matchmaker for creating a platform that connects guests for podcasts, and again for Alex and Filippo for creating Podmatch, 2 fantastic softwares that are helping us make podcasting much easier. So that is where Chris Shouzy from AppSumo, head of growth at AppSumo at the time, just wrote me a message to say, it looks like you're doing some amazing things and you've got some momentum. I would love to be on the podcast. And at the time, I said, who's this Chris Shouzy guy? So I looked and he said, oh, head of growth at AppSumo. Oh, whoop-de-doo. I didn't know at the time. So I reached out to Phil and said, Phil, have you heard of AppSumo before? Chris Shouzy from AppSumo wants to be on the podcast. And long story short, he said, yes, just say yes. Just do the interview. So this is the first time that I wore a shirt for a podcast interview and put a little bit more effort into the research, like you. The interview went really, really great. We had a great laugh, and we spoke about his journey and how he got hired by AppSumo, and it's very similar looking back. I jokingly said to him on the podcast, or I may have said it on a different podcast, that I said it on Phil's podcast when he interviewed me the first time, and the podcast never aired. I said to him, rewind a little bit. I finished the interview, and in the email communication, I said, in the onboarding form, you said you wanted to sponsor the podcast. What did that look like for you? Because I would love to put you in front of my audience. And AppSumo were my first podcast sponsor over a couple of episodes during their Black Friday $1 million fund giveaway, which was in November 2021. So during that time. And then I had a interview with Phil, and I said, wouldn't it be funny if I got hired by AppSumo? Wouldn't it be funny if I was able to go to Austin and spend some time with them? I just said it without even really believing it at the time. But in the email communications that I had with AppSumo and with the sponsorship, I just said, I've uploaded a product for the $1 million giveaway fund because with the campaign that they were running, if you uploaded it, you would get either $250 or $500 as an incentive for uploading and getting your product approved. So I created a basic digital download. I didn't really know what to do, but it was called How to Get Experts on Your Podcast Guide. And it's evolved into Podcast Launch Strategy, which is a great name, Podcast Launch Strategy. We sold 340 copies of it, which is fantastic, over the last 2 years. And yeah, so that's kind of how it went. And it was taking a bit of time to get approved. So I reached out to Chris instead of going to partners at AppSumo or support.
Yeah.
I went to him directly and said, I did what you said. I uploaded the product. It's just taken some time to get approved, and I'd really like to get access to that bonus as part of the giveaway. Yeah, at the moment, we're furious. The reply was, at the moment, we're furiously hiring because we need help to get these products through the door. So I just offered, like I did in my past career, my time and support. I'd love to support you during this campaign, blah, 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 blah. And then they said, well, actually, let me put you in touch with the hiring team. And one thing led to another. I became a launch operations associate at AppSumo. And then they soon realized I was more interested or better at building the relationships and inside sales. So they moved me to a partner success manager role, and I was just overseeing about all the products that were on AppSumo at the time, making sure that they're optimized for success, making sure that the partners are satisfied with the experience, and making money. So, or helping them make as much money as they could. I can't promise anything, but I could do what I could on the back end for them. Yeah, so that was a fantastic experience, and it came from just saying out loud, imagine if I got hired at AppSumo, imagine if they sponsored my podcast. So that's kind of the long story, and thanks for giving me the time to share.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good segue to, I mean, like how you and I met, because I mean, I had a product on AppSumo at the time, and I got an email from someone named Chris, and then we followed up with like a live 30-minute session, and I mean, essentially the rest is history, but it was like a gap in time. Like I think I put the product out there, we stayed in communication a little bit, and then one day I think I had posted a video with Phil on LinkedIn, and that's how he was like, you know Phil? I was like, you know Phil? I was like, and then from there it was like the rest was history. From that point on, we were like friends on everything, and kind of just seeing what you were doing. I definitely wanted to help you and be a part of that. So with that, right, I think earlier on you had made this comment about, you were lonely and you were looking for opportunities to communicate with other people. So at that time, I want to talk about like Tom the cat. Wasn't Tom the cat like your main person at that time frame that you were leaning on during your lonely times? And it kind of leads me to talk about like you going through like this dark period but coming out on top. So I want you to talk about that. I mean, and everything in journeys and in entrepreneur, there's hurdles, right? There's everything is going great and then things are not going great. Everything's going great, things are not going great. So I want you to talk about how did you kind of come through that with Tom the cat by your side?
Yeah, there's definitely highs and lows with Tom the cat at the moment because, so before I explain that, Tom the cat was given to us by my nan who died October 8th last year, and she just wasn't fit enough and she'd had surgery, so we adopted the cat and we've been looking after him since. He's definitely a stress reliever, but unfortunately, because I went away from home for more than 6 weeks, for 90 days, I removed myself from the environment that I'm in. And when I came back into that environment, I found out I have a cat allergy. So at the time, he was a stress reliever and, a friend, you can say that. But I didn't start podcasting with Tom the cat there. In 2018 and 2019, when I was in Australia for 1 year, at that time, I was looking for something else to do. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do cooking forever because of my physical health.
Mhm.
So I did what most do. They go to Google and they search how to get rich quick.
Mhm.
And maybe not most people do that, but it was something that I was kind of desperate for. I needed to find a new way because at the time, yes, I had a degree, but it was in hospitality and business management. And I felt like I'd put all my eggs in one basket, and it was going to, I didn't know what to do about changing career. So I searched, and um, I don't know how it managed to happen, but on Instagram, somebody sent me a message to say I can get you these returns. And because I was naive at that time, I just took it, invested my money, lost my money. So not only did I, when I was in uh, Melbourne, Australia, leaving in 2019 to start a new career that I didn't know what I was going to do. There was a lot of turmoil. I had no money or limited supply of money now. Had no career, and I hadn't been truthfully honest with everybody that was the nearest and dearest with me. So I always felt like I was keeping a secret or living a double life, and holding all those things back and living a lie for 6 months or so really damages your mental health, your self-talk, and you go into yourself. And if you're born as an only child, you've only got a select couple of people, I feel, as close friends. And when you're relying on them, sometimes they leave you because you're negative energy. And then I realized I've got nobody. I've got less than 5 people as friends that I can rely on. No money, no career hopes, or what can I do? But in Australia, I decided in one moment, do I quit on life now, or do I find a way out of this big, deep hole? Not just money, but career as well, and relationships. So at that point, I saw another Facebook ad to go to a free seminar on coaching, NLP coaching. So I attended that free event. And even though I had no money, I signed up for the higher package offer, found a way to make that money back. So casinos, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
um, and I spent 6 days with a master in NLP, really trying to get myself back. But the only issue with that is I still had my limiting beliefs. I still had the fear of success, and there was a lot of. I still had no money. I still had no career hopes, but now I've still got the NLP disc drive that I listen to every now and then, and the lessons I learned that day have, they've helped me up to this point anyway. So that's kind of a story that I can't remember I shared with you ever before, but and I can't even remember what question you asked me, but I think people need to realize that there's going to be, there we go, ups and downs, big ups and downs. And that was one big up and down where I needed a friend or a cat to escape reality or calm me down. But in that moment, I think when I started the podcast, there were lots more downs than ups. So I knew I was interested in business, knew I wanted to find a way to make money online. And so I joined some Facebook groups that I definitely credit to my success. Video Creation Academy was a video course that I did and met some incredible SEO experts and digital marketers, and they spotted that, Chris, you've got a talent in talking to people. Why don't you start a podcast? Interview 4 people a week for 16 weeks or 13 weeks, and you'll change your life. So I had no other option, really. I was working as a delivery driver, listening to audiobooks in my ear, Jim Rohn, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning Book. I was listening to all of these books while driving the delivery bus. So I had no other option, and I knew I wanted to get into the online space. So I took them up on the offer, and but in that it's funny. You say big ups and downs.
Mm.
I had to stop the delivery driver job to have more ankle surgery. So
Mm.
I was recovering from ankle surgery while recording my first season of Talking with Experts as well. So I had to have my foot raised 55 minutes an hour
Mm.
for 3 months. So why not get a podcast launched and change my life?
Yeah, 100% right. I think it's very cool that you brought up Luke Hawkins coaching, right? So people that don't know what LLP is, it's neuro logistic programming, which is kind of like you can kind of hear parts of what you said earlier on in the show. It's like kind of like if you're familiar with this about, okay, well, what if I work for AppSumo? And then you work for AppSumo. So, but it also kind of goes into like communication and language, which is kind of leading to where you are right now. I mean, your conversation.
I'm actually an introvert, so I won't go up and talk to any. And I'm going to go with kind.
I definitely agree with all of those. I mean, you're definitely a kind soul, and on this particular episode, you brought up your nat a couple different times. So I want you to kind of, if you don't mind, to kind of reach into that. Like, what did it mean for you to kind of have the level of success that you have right now, knowing that your nan is all a part of this equation, and you always, I think, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you wanted to make her proud of you. So I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So she's always someone I would confide in. And instead of, you at past funerals, I would put a domino pack in my granddad's coffin or whatever it was. For this time, I wrote a letter, a promise letter to say, this is what I'm going to do for myself, for you, but also for the rest of the family. So promise to this, promise to that. And haven't shared those promises. That's just mine to her. So there's a reason why I'm taking massive action, massive and comfortable action. I don't just want to launch 1,000 podcasts in the next year or the next 2 years. There are deep promises that I've told her. So she's very significant because I could share anything with her and she would never judge me. I always felt like because of the relationship that broke down a little bit in 2018 and 2019 with my dearest, which is my parents, every time I shared something, it was met with disbelief that I wouldn't be able to achieve it because, or that I made bad decisions because I made one bad decision in 2019. So when I would talk to my nan, there was no judgment. It was like, great, you're doing this. I believe in you. So, and if you go back, you may see on Instagram, there's a video of me with my great grandmother. And she was the first person that put, like, in a video, it's fascinating. She puts the arm around me and said, I'm so proud of you. It's really nice. So I've had some powerful women in my life. All my cousins are female, bar one. And maybe that has had a direct impact on the way I connect with people in my life. I'm more of a nurturer, a lover. I'm less stoic and masculine, but I think that's fine. Yeah. So
So
thank you, Nan.
I think that definitely it's a hell of a testament to her. So I want you to kind of think about 2020 being hindsight, right? If you had an opportunity, I think you said you had made one major mistake in 2019, and that's not the thing that maybe something else happened before that. But if you had an opportunity to go back and change one thing, what is that one thing that you would want to change to make where you are happen a lot faster?
Oof. I would probably have in when I was working at a Michelin star restaurant, age 17 or something like that. At that point in the kitchen, he said, "Oh, you'd be." There was one chef, because chefs put each other down sometimes, or they're just realistic. They say you're not going to be a great chef. You're going to quit in a few years.
Mm.
that was a message that he said, you won't make it as a top chef. You might as well quit. At that point, I should have just said, yes, I'm going to quit because, with the health condition, at that point, that would have been a great time to stop, but I couldn't stop. I don't regret the decision I made in 2018 or 2019. Now I see it as a massive blessing in disguise because up to that point, I was given everything I wanted. I was very much spoiled, and all the money that I did have in my bank was inherited, and I lost that with the mistake that I made, and it made me realize and respect money, what it is, and the power of it. So I don't regret the massive mistake that I made in 2019. It was a massive learning lesson, and I know what it's like to not have any money, and to have a lot of money. And it has made me realize that I'm also a little bit motivated by money, but also not, because I've had a lot of time without money and I still took action. So very self-motivated.
I mean, I think the topic of monetization and money, and I think earlier you brought up the book by Millionaire Mindset, right? Or Millionaire Mind. I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, what other books have you read while you were just listening to audiobooks that kind of help you become who you are that you would like to recommend to the listener?
Oh yeah. Miracle Morning is one I always go back to, and something that I'm actually with my new schedule, I found a way to do a Miracle Morning. And the Miracle Morning book, right at the end or right at the start, it says join the Facebook group and find an accountability partner that can keep you accountable. And because I love traveling and meeting people around the world, I like to do that as well, because if I am that way, I can go and see them and meet them. And I'd rather know more people around the world than in my own country and city. So my accountability partner in all places was in Australia. So when I woke up, she was ending her day and I would keep her accountable. And when I woke up, she was going to bed. So it was a really great crossover. And we wrote long messages. She was my first pen pal. We would write what mistakes we'd make, or it was really great. So the basic framework for the Miracle Morning is like master your morning before 8 a.m. in the morning, or something along those lines. And there's 6 key parts to it. It's called savers. Don't quote me on this, but silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and there's a missing S, but I think it might be, there's a missing S, but I always go back to that book because Hal Elrod also had an incident. I think he was in a car crash or something, and he changed his life by doing the savers. So I thought I'd give that a go, and it's one I always go back to if I feel like I'm off my morning schedule. I always go back to it. So that's not even business related, but that has just helped me keep my imagination alive, and just it's very similar to the Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, because how Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, he talks about affirmations and has a list of things you could say, and so the mind is what you've got to overcome on your journey to being successful, or whatever success is. But just if you've got control of this, it's easy, but you'll never have control of it because you'll always have self-doubt. You'll always have anxiety and nerves. And I was nervous before this. So just realize you're going to have the ups and downs. Like me, your story is going to be very different to mine. But if you can figure out why you have your lows and why you have your highs, you can quite easily regulate your emotions. So don't get too happy, don't get too sad.
Mm.
But you've got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think even bringing up T. Harvey, I mean, both the authors that you brought up, both of them are survivors. Because T. Harvey, he survived like a really bad fire and got burned as well, and so it kind of just shows to like the mindset of overcoming these hurdles. So I want you to take that information, take who you are, and I want you to then ball this up and express a word of insight, a word of wisdom to the listener that may be you. It may be a kid in the UK riding a unicycle for the first time today, right? And his parents may be listening to this podcast. What words of insight do you want to leave them with to help them to continue on their journeys?
Yeah. So this one has actually come up more recently. It's see everything as an opportunity.
Mm,
Um, and there's this quote called "Don't wait, create." See everything as an opportunity. For me, in my hardships, see it as an opportunity, as a blessing in disguise that you're going through this experience for a reason and to learn from it. If you have like your first $1,000 day or something, see it as an opportunity to maybe reinvest in yourself. Learn from, oh well, how did that happen? uh, see everything as an opportunity. That's something that I want. If you're in that period where, oh, I'm not happy with what I'm doing, find something you love, because it won't feel like work ever, and see it as an opportunity to grow, develop, find new relationships. It's definitely helped me in my life. But at the time, it might be super difficult to see it as an opportunity and be optimistic. But don't be optimistic. Be sad about it. That's fine. But see it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, to figure out why you failed. Or
mm. So, with that being said, I mean, obviously you had like a long list of dreams or goals. I think one of your dreams was you wanted to connect a million people or connect with a million people and a higher purpose, right? With alignment. I think another one of your dreams was you wanted to educate and give back to the community. And it was a list of these different goals. So, where do you ideally see what you're doing in yourself 20 years from now?
oh, 20 years from now, oh my goodness. Oh, it's I always said right at the start I wanted to either have a charity,
Mhm.
um, or um, uh, right, maybe like 2019 when I was doing the NLP, I was writing some crazy goals there. In 6 years, I would have 10 million, but that's just a monetary goal. I want to adopt children. I want to help those that are homeless or disabled or changing career or seen as the underdog, achieve their wildest of dreams, whether that's through podcasting or not through podcasting. But I feel like I'll be doing a lot more for supporting the next generation, because I've worked in as a volunteer mentor in schools and realized that there's not enough education happening in school outside of the curriculum, finances, attitudes around money, uh, all there's a I'm
Mhm.
sure you could go on as well. So educate our education system needs to change, and I feel like as a mentor at City Year UK and advisor for Project Creativity, I want to give them a shout out. they they are helping me fulfill that mentorship role by supporting the next generation of young leaders. So in the next 20 years, I would like to either be the CEO of a big charity, maybe my own charity, uh, and support young leaders coming through that might be disadvantaged, that might be underdogs, start a business.
Hmm. So, I mean, with that, if someone's listening right now, they want to get in contact with you. Let's say they want to start up a podcast, or they just want to talk to you more, or they want to help you fulfill your dreams of becoming a nonprofit, CEO or an executive. How do they get in contact with you?
I'm probably the only Chris Cownden. So Chris Cownden, Cownden on Google. That's fine. I'm sure there's links up there. New website coming out very soon, theexpertwhisperer.com, which will be in the links.
Very cool. Very cool. So going into a bonus question for you, right? If you could spend 24 hours with anyone, and this person could be someone that's dead or alive from the past or present, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I think I may have wrote down a different name before, and it's funny. I would like to no one famous, but I would like to, and did you say it has to be a man or
Could be anyone.
anyone? Yeah, I would like to sit down with my great auntie who died maybe a couple of years ago. I would like to meet her when she was in her 40s working for the Transport for London as a secretary. And she was crushing it. So I would have loved to just have a day in the life of her, working next to her and seeing how she was communicating with all these top CEOs in London, and or even celebrating with her when she got her MBE from the Queen. Yeah, I would really like to just have another conversation with her, because she was definitely the woman of my life from 1995 when I was born all the way up to her death in, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Well, I think you definitely brought a different insight to like podcasting. And again, like there's so many different ways to monetize podcasting. But again, like you said earlier, you have to be completely passionate about it. So with this next step, I think you're used to it. You're a podcaster. So I like to give whoever I'm interviewing when I close out an opportunity to become the host of the Boss Uncaged podcast. So the Boss Uncaged show is now yours. You're the host. I'm your guest. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask me?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, going off the only child, how only child story,
Mm.
how did you find it growing up being an only child, and what from kept you busy but not from going insane?
Crazy? Well,
Yeah.
I think insanity with an only child just comes hand in hand with it. For me, I kind of had alter egos, which till this day I think people are still experiencing, considering the whole dawn of SA Grant. But back in the day, I used to like when somebody did something in the house. Obviously, it was the only child in the house that did it, and I used to blame it on my middle name, right? So it was kind of me just separating who I was from who I wanted to be, or who did whatever negative thing at that point in time. And I think as I gotten older, I've just kind of learned how to turn those switches on and off. So I'm very adaptive to that not personality, but I'm adapted to the environment. I could be around a bunch of guys that are talking about football, or I could be around a bunch of girls that are talking about swimming. I could kind of jump into multiple different disciplines. For some reason, I was just born with that skill, and I've just learned how to kind of use it. And podcasting makes it a great tool for me to kind of exude that.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, and can I ask another question?
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
What has been your lowest low?
Oh shit. I mean, it's from the outside looking in. I think people that have success, or people that are doing things, or creating media outlets like you and myself, people probably look at us like we're always happy. And the reality is that we're not. Like we go through things on a regular basis. And much like you said earlier, like the imposter syndrome, that's a real thing. Like I go through that probably every day when I wake up. And again, I kind of just push through it, and you just kind of learn how to push through it every single day. But I would think my darkest days were my first 18 months of my business, not realizing that I was essentially killing myself, literally killing myself, working and working, trying to figure things out and trying to grow and trying to be prosperous. And then unfortunately, it just caught up to me. So like when I woke up in the hospital post stroke, I think that was probably like one of my darkest realities. And again, I could recap the 18 years before of all the darkness that just multiplied and added up until that moment of climax.
Yeah. Yeah. And You say that about your stroke every time, you've seen that I'm taking massive action. You said, be careful, look after yourself. And it has really helped me take a sit back, reflect, try not to push myself too much, because it's gonna lead to burnout. So you've saved me a lot of times from burning out. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I learn from example, and it's not to say that you have to cut back. It's just to figuring out not the easier route, but how to leverage assets. And I think you're really good at that. I mean, you find people that are really good at what they do, and you bring them in, and essentially you build this community of individuals from like supreme web developers, like teaching you how to create companies, to having Phil teaching you how to monetize, having myself talk about branding. Like again, that's why I named you the expert boss, because again, you collect experts like I collect AppSumo deals.
Yeah, it's like experts like Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah, it's just so it's definitely. I think it's a phenomenal thing. I mean, again, I think this episode is a phenomenal episode because not only are you a friend, not only you're a partner, but I've seen like the ups and downs and where you're going and where you are right now. So for the listener, I think Chris is a phenomenal, not only expert, but a phenomenal person just to follow, to kind of see how he moves and shakes. And to his point, he just says stuff and stuff happens. Like, I'm gonna work for AppSumo. Hey, AppSumo is gonna be a sponsor. Like, that's legit shit that really happened. But again, you have to put those words out into the ethos for it to come back in return.
100%. And the same thing happened. And to leave on another high is at the podcast show in London, May 2023. I just spoke to Ash, who's the co-founder of Capsho. If you ever need any help, I'm always there to support Capsho, because I've loved the product. And then one thing led to another. In June 2023, I got hired at Capsho.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Well, I just keep on doing it, and again, keep being a source of inspiration. Because again, as an only child, like I think by default we go into those dark places because we don't have like a sibling or have people that potentially you could lean on. You have friends, but it's, at the end of the day, you're by yourself. So
Yeah.
having the opportunity to figure it out and to attach yourself to positive individuals, entrepreneurs, successful people is just a way of doing it. So I definitely appreciate you being on the show today, bringing the insight and bringing the evolution of who you are from riding bikes and baking to being a hell of a podcaster.
Thank you so much.
Great. I say, Grant,